A TV host named Suzanne Moretto is accused of a gruesome crime. Suzanne was a symbol of beauty on a local TV station and was happy with her husband Larry, but behind this ostensible family idol, something terrible was hidden. Next, we see Suzanne in the past giving an interview about herself. She preferred to appear on screen under her maiden name Stone, rather than her husband's surname. Some time ago, Suzanne and Larry got married, but now he is no longer alive. Someone took his life. Suzanne is playing the role of a grieving widow. Janice, Larry's sister, has always thought of Suzanne as a cold and ambitious woman. However, Larry fell in love with her at first sight. They met in a bar when the guy was performing with a music band. Janice tried to dissuade her brother from the idea of dating Suzanne, but he didn't want to hear about it. He loves Suzanne and wants to marry her. Of course, Suzanne had many admirers. Larry followed her everywhere, telling his sister that Suzanne was the girl of his dreams. She was like a fragile porcelain doll. Larry wants to keep her safe and make her happy. Once, Suzanne made a comment about Janice's appearance. Of course, Janice didn't like it, but Suzanne was never shy about voicing her opinions out loud. Her cherished dream is to become a TV star. Larry is madly in love with Suzanne, thinking that he is very lucky that such a beauty has noticed him. Suzanne always knew what she wanted from life. From an early age, she loved the camera and the attention to herself. Suzanne's father, Earl Stone, talked on a TV show about how his daughter met Larry. The parents did not like this guy because his education was limited to school, but the daughter was too stubborn and did not heed the father's advice. Larry's father, Joe Moretto, was also not thrilled about his son's girlfriend. But Larry thought Suzanne was the perfect woman. She has every chance of success and inspires Larry to become more ambitious as well. Joy was very surprised when he found out that the son had sold his drums. He is no longer playing in the band. Soon the couple got married. They seemed to be happy and spent their honeymoon in Florida, although Suzanne didn't like beaches. All men envy Larry, who is such a beautiful wife. Upon returning to their home state, Larry bought a house with money saved for college. He also gifted his wife a car. Once when they were visited by relatives, Suzanne blurted out that she wanted to do aerobics to lose some weight. Everyone was puzzled because Suzanne already has a perfect figure. But according to her, on screen a person always looks fuller. Janice was rushing to rehearsal. She is a dancer and performs in the theater. Janice was enthusiastically telling about their new performance, but suddenly the brother interrupted her, saying that he and Suzanne have some exciting news for everyone. Their parents thought they were expecting a baby, but that was not the case. It turned out that Suzanne had found a job at a local cable station, which hired a woman for the first time. This will be a good start to Suzanne's television career. Once Angela, Larry's mother, found out that her daughter-in-law actually couldn't cook, but ordered food from a local restaurant. Angela decided not to tell anyone about this because, as it turned out later, this was far from the worst. Many remember Suzanne as a woman who stops at nothing in her ambitions. Larry never found out that Suzanne chose that hotel in Florida for a reason. She knew in advance that a meeting of television personalities would be held there. Suzanne immediately caught the attention of one of the television journalists. During his speech, he couldn't take his eyes off her. While they were drinking and chatting, Suzanne introduced herself by her maiden name Stone. The television journalist hinted that he could help her with the career if she could help him this night. Suzanne returned to her husband late. Colleagues remember Suzanne as a tank girl who stopped at nothing. Despite her sweet appearance, she had great ambitions. Suzanne again introduced herself by her maiden name, and assured Mr. Grant that if he hired her, he would not regret it. For now, the television station only needs a mail sorter. Of course, Suzanne wants something more. She has lots of ideas on how to improve the television station. Mr. Grant promised to consider her candidacy. Suzanne made it clear that she will not back down. Mr. Grant and his assistant immediately nicknamed her Tank. Larry doesn't like that his wife is always waking up very early and doesn't pay any attention to him. That's not how he imagined their marriage. The only one Suzanne really loved was her dog Walter. Once, she received the pet as a gift. Mr. Grant recalls that Suzanne was literally bursting with ideas. Every day she approached her boss with new suggestions. Despite the fact that it was just a small local television station, Suzanne was determined to make a name for herself in the whole country. After several months, Mr. Grant tired of her persistence and agreed to commission her to anchor the weather forecast. Suzanne took this very seriously and prepared for each broadcast as if it were her last. Suzanne fancied herself a TV star and wanted to win over viewers with her charisma and appearance. Larry was very proud of his wife. Suzanne achieved her goal. Now she has become a local star. People recognize her on the street. Popularity is exactly what Suzanne has always wanted. One day she comes to the school to make a documentary about teenagers. Suzanne invites all willing for interviews. A guy from a troubled family, Jimmy Emmett, won over by Suzanne's beauty, immediately signs up for the interview. An insecure girl named Lydia Mertz also joined in, as did school bully Russell Hines, who was persuaded by the teacher to participate. Suzanne assured television viewers that the management fully supported her project because it was very important from a sociological point of view. But in fact, Mr. Grant did just that because Suzanne was very insistent. Of course, Suzanne first and foremost pursued her own goals. She never missed an opportunity to make herself known and appear on television. Suzanne interviewed the 3 young people. All of them were from disadvantaged families. Jimmy was clearly in love with Suzanne. Mr. Grant encountered such persistence in a woman for the first time. She always stayed late at work and didn't even remember about the husband, who was waiting for her at home. Suzanne is editing her documentary film. In it, James, whom his classmates call Jimmy, talks about his feelings for Suzanne. She was the first one to call him by his name. In the past, the teenagers talked about Suzanne. Lydia sincerely considers her very sweet and kind. Russell doesn't share her opinion, unlike Jimmy. He, like Lydia, considers Suzanne a special woman. Once during a home party, Angela asked Suzanne if she and Larry were planning to have children. Suzanne replied that for a woman in her profession, it's a big burden that would hinder her career. But Larry disagrees. He wants to have children and constantly hints about this to his wife. Suzanne immediately hurried to work. On the TV screen she looks stunning. Jimmy never misses the weather forecast to watch her. Meanwhile, Janice advises her brother to make every effort to get Suzanne, who is about to send her tape to New York, pregnant. However, Janice was unpleasantly surprised when she found out from Larry that his wife was going to take a course in modern journalism in Los Angeles. Janice advised her brother to tell Suzanne no at least once. When she came home, he didn't hide his displeasure and said they needed to discuss their future. Larry, who is the manager of his father's restaurant, wants to implement many new ideas and offers the wife to join him. In his opinion, her television experience could be very useful in this. Suzanne understood that the husband wants to see in her only a housewife, taking care of the family. Of course, she is not happy with this arrangement, but Suzanne pretended that everything was fine. She remembered the husband's promise, who said he would never interfere with her career. Despite everything, Suzanne did not plan to divorce and wanted to find another way out of this situation. Lydia started spending a lot of time with Suzanne and went shopping with her. Suzanne mentioned that she was unhappy in marriage because she did not feel support from her husband. Lydia received many gifts from Suzanne. No one had ever bought her anything before, not even her parents. Because of her family, Lydia got a lot of psychological trauma and shared this with Suzanne, who advised her to leave the past in the past. Lydia mentioned that her mother keeps a gun in the closet. In retrospect, Lydia regretted telling Suzanne about this. She thinks this is what provoked Suzanne into committing a crime. In the evening, Larry asked his wife if she had considered his proposal. Suzanne avoided answering, behaving artificially sweet. However, her hatred for Larry was growing every day. A sinister plan had already matured in Suzanne's mind. When her husband was not at home, Jimmy and Lydia visited her. They threw a small house party. Lydia was very shy because she did not know how to dance. But Jimmy, on the contrary, was not averse to dancing with Suzanne. Suddenly she asked Lydia to walk the dog. So Jimmy was alone with Suzanne. When Lydia, having walked the pet, returned and entered the house, she heard sounds of passion from the bedroom. Opening the door slightly, Lydia saw what she should not have. She could not believe what was happening. In the present, Jimmy recalls how it was. From that moment, he started spending a lot of time with Suzanne. She often cried, complaining to him about her husband. The guy, who was madly in love with Suzanne, had no idea that she was actually manipulating him. Suzanne lied that her husband was a very cruel man. But she does not want a divorce, because in that case, Larry would get the house. Jimmy swore to Suzanne that he would do everything for her, even take Larry's life. After only a second, Suzanne's mood suddenly became cheerful, as if nothing had happened. Lydia recalls how Suzanne promised to make her a personal assistant. Lydia believed her, dreaming of a bright, beautiful life. She wanted to be like Suzanne. Time goes by, and Jimmy has not yet fulfilled his promise. Suzanne was very unhappy and said she was wrong about him. Perhaps she should ask Russell to do it. Hearing this, Jimmy realized that if he does not act decisively, Suzanne will leave him. A party was being prepared at Larry's parents' house in honor of their son's wedding anniversary. Meanwhile, Lydia took the gun from the house. Russell is also involved, as Suzanne promised him $1,000. While the Moretto couple was at the party, the teenagers were preparing to put Suzanne's sinister plan into action. Soon Larry returned home. His wife was at work at that time. Unsuspecting, Larry was going to walk the dog when the guys attacked him. As always, Suzanne was shining on live TV. Larry told the hooligans that they could take money and any valuables. At this moment, Jimmy saw Suzanne on TV. Russell was persuading Jimmy to finish what they had started. Despite fear and doubts, he did it, taking Larry's life. Suzanne wished her husband a happy anniversary on live TV and wished him a good night. She does not regret her actions and behaves as if nothing has happened. Soon the Morettos' house was cordoned off by the police and detectives were at the crime scene. After receiving a call and learning about her brother's demise, Janice fainted. In the meantime, detectives questioned Joe about whether his son had any ill wishers. Suzanne's parents are supporting grieving Angela. Suzanne in turn plays the role of a grief-stricken widow. However, when she saw the cameras, she immediately started fixing her hair. Soon there was a funeral, attended by journalists. Currently, Jimmy, who is in custody, says that Larry didn't seem to be the cruel person that Suzanne had described him to be. But by that time, he didn't have any choice but to see it through. He did it for love. All of Larry's friends and relatives loved him very much and are puzzled about who would wish him harm. However, Janice instantly knew it was Suzanne. The husband was a hindrance to her career, so she decided to get rid of him. One day Lydia came to Suzanne and told her that she was scared. Suzanne assured her that there was nothing to fear because they would soon part ways and each live their own lives. Of course, this is not in Jimmy's plans, who until the very end hoped that his beloved would now be with him. Suzanne ordered Lydia to tell Jimmy to stay away from this house. Suzanne also has no intention of paying Russell the promised money. Lydia left in tears. She wants everything to be as it was before, but it turns out that Suzanne just used them. Lydia and Jimmy have no idea that detectives are watching Suzanne's house right now. The woman was confident that after the tragedy was covered in the media, her TV career would take off. However, Suzanne got scared when she learned from Mr. Grant that the police had come and confiscated her tapes of the documentary about teenagers. One fragment particularly interested the police. That day Suzanne was interviewing teenagers, asking questions about modern societal issues. At some point Jimmy winked at her. In the present, Mr. Grant sold this fragment to a popular crime news channel and made good money. Soon the police arrested Jimmy. During the search, they found photos of him and Suzanne together. On Jimmy's tip, the gun from Lydia's house was also confiscated. After that, the detectives arrested Russell, Jimmy's accomplice. In her interview, Suzanne put on a performance. She allegedly cannot believe that the teenagers she cared about could do such a thing. Suzanne hopes that her documentary will now attract the attention of prestigious channels like the BBC. Jimmy was brought in for questioning. All the evidence points to his involvement. Jimmy confessed that he did it for Suzanne because he loves her very much. He also wanted to protect her from the husband. The police installed a listening device on Lydia and instructed her to meet with Suzanne. The woman asks what the police wanted with the teens. Suzanne also began blaming everything on Lydia and the guys. Suzanne claims she never asked them to commit the crime, it was their idea. Suzanne intends to testify against the teenagers. She is convinced that nobody will believe Jimmy, Russell, and Lydia. After this conversation, Suzanne was arrested but released on bail. Journalists won't let her pass. It seems she is enjoying her popularity. She also announced that her husband was not the man he claimed to be. According to her, during the shooting of the documentary, Larry met Jimmy and Russell and got into trouble. Hearing this on TV, Janice and her parents were shocked. In a fit of anger, Joe smashed the TV. Since then, Suzanne's parents have not seen her. Having finished telling her story, she was about to send the tape to Hollywood. Suzanne hopes to land a contract with a major TV station. She soon met a man who is supposedly a movie industry agent in Hollywood. According to him, he has a large studio and influential connections. The man said he had something to show her and led her somewhere. In the next scene, we see Joe receiving a call from this same man. The grieving parents wanted to avenge their son and take the life of his wife. In the end, Jimmy received a life sentence, and Russell got only 16 years. Despite everything, Jimmy misses Suzanne, but strangely cannot remember her face. Lydia was not arrested for cooperating with the investigation. She is now getting invitations from different shows, having become famous. It is ironic that unlike Suzanne, Lydia has gained popularity. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel not to miss more exciting new products. Also, the authors will be pleased if you leave your opinion in the comments.